This week's That's Business interview is with Scott Mendelsohn, the founder and owner of Raw Sea, coconut water business. Now, Scott started this business 14 years ago, selling coconut water out of his girlfriend's car, in fact. And now it's a fast-growing $100 million a year business selling coconut water and coconut milk, coconut yogurt, and not just in Australia, but in a number of other countries, and he's just launched in the United States. So this really is one of the great startup success stories in Australia. Here's Scott Mendelsohn, the founder of Raw Sea. G'day, Scott Mendelsohn. Thanks for joining That's Business.
Hey, Alan. Great to be with you again.
Scott, I spoke to you, I think about 8 years ago when the business was 8 years old, and you were growing pretty quickly then, and you owned 100% of the business, Raw Sea. Have you had to bring in investors since then, or do you still own 100%?
No, I still own 100%. I think when I spoke to you, it might have been 8 years ago. The business started in 2012, so we're on to our 14th year.
So you were 6 years old then, and I can't remember how much coconut water you were selling back then, but what were you turning over? What are you turning over now, and how much have you grown since then?
The category's grown significantly, and we've grown along with that. I think 8 years ago we might have been doing maybe $8 to $10 million, and we're just about to break through $100 million worth of sales for 12 months.
$100 million. So what sort of growth rate are you experiencing at the moment?
The business has doubled in the last 2 years, so it's been on a real tear.
That's incredible. So take us through the history. What were you doing 14 years ago, and what made you start this business?
Yeah, so my background, both my parents were immigrants.
Where from?
My father was on the last boat out of Nazi Germany, came via Canada, came to Australia. My mother came across from New Zealand. When she was 16, her father died and she decided to get out of Wellington. So they came over here. So growing up, spent weekends and a lot of our holidays in Asia because my father had an import business in clothing.
Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Sydney in the east. We moved around a bit. We lived in the US for a couple of years when I was younger, but spent a lot of time in Asia or on the weekends in my father's factory helping him pack boxes. So, after school, worked in Macquarie Bank for a while. Then my brother and I, we started a promotional products, licensed product import business. So we were doing things like NRL, AFL, the V8 supercars, a lot of their licensed products. Moved up to China, lived there for a year, didn't really like it. It was before technology, before social media. You could go a couple of weeks without speaking English to anyone. I didn't speak Chinese at that time at all. So it was quite isolating. I was drinking a lot of coconuts being up in Asia. And when I got back to Australia, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I did a few odd jobs, but I was sort of umming and ahhing whether or not I got back into finance, and thought, look, I'll bring in a container of coconut water. I'll sell it off, make some money. And by the time I do that, I'll work out what I wanted to do with my life.
Where did you get the first container?
So it was from Thailand. It was basically.
What did it cost you?
So it was 25 grand. So that was all the money I had at that stage. I didn't even have a car at that stage, and I was very, very raw. I had no experience in FMCG whatsoever. So much.
So what was the coconut water in the container? Was it in?
It was
packets?
It was in the Tetra, the 330 ml, the small one with a screw top.
Right.
That's all that was really available apart from cans back then. There weren't any 1 litres.
And how did you sell it? How did you sell the packs?
So I had so little understanding of what needed to be done that when the container arrived, I didn't even have anywhere to put it. So I actually had to ring a mate of mine who had a factory and say, Paul, can I drop a container into your factory and unload it? And he jokingly said, do I want to know what's in the container? Because, just to get a call out of the blue to say, I've brought a container in from Asia would have sounded quite dodgy. So I went out there, I unloaded the container, which was tough because it was pallet jacks and each pallet weighed just over a ton. So the first pallet that I brought out, I actually managed to tip over and smash and, destroy half the pallet. So I was already, minus $5,000 there. So it was a great start. But I unloaded it, got home, and I just started seeing this girl, Dana, who's now my wife. And I told her about this idea, and she said, well, how are you going to sell this product? And I said, I'm actually not quite sure because I don't have a car. I don't have any connections. And she said, well, here's my car. Go and fill it up and, drive around and see how you go. So, I'm very much a confidence glass half full. So I drove out there. I completely filled her car up, so much so the back of the car was basically touching the ground because it was so heavy with the coconut water. And I drove around for 9.5 hours around the eastern suburbs in October 2012. And after 9.5 hours, I'd sold one box.
Who did you say? But who were you talking to? What did you?
I was
whose doors
literally
did you
just
knock
going
on?
into fruit stores, health food stores, corner stores, and people were just looking at me like I had three heads. Most people didn't know what coconut water was. They called it coconut juice, and it was rough. I literally, I think I got to the last place that bought one box off me. And I think he bought it just because he could see how dejected I was. And I got home and I said to Dana, well, that was a complete waste of time and money. And she said, why? And I said, because I've driven around for 9.5 hours and I've sold one box of coconut water for $22.88. That's not a business. I was pretty upset. And she said, but that's great. And I said, sorry, what's great about it? And she said, well, tomorrow you'll sell 2 boxes and the day after that you'll sell 4. And I remember at the time thinking, well, firstly, she's a keeper.
That's right. I was going to say, no wonder you married her.
Yeah, because somebody that hardly even really knew me and, was dating a bloke that was, basically unemployed and was driving around trying to sell coconut water. And yeah, it just went from there.
So what did you say? You did sell 2 next day and then 4 the day after that.
I did, but it was hard work. It was, it was just on the ground every day, going, mainly to gyms and yoga studios, health stores, and places that I thought would resonate with coconut water because, people, like I said before, didn't really know what it was. There was no education around it. There was no market share. There was no household penetration. It was very much a new category.
Did you end up selling the whole container?
I did. And then...
And did you make money?
I did. Well, I did because I wasn't paying myself and I had no overheads. Remember, I was using Dana's car and using the kitchen table to send invoices. But what happened was, after a week or so, I started to get a couple of calls saying, hey, that box that you left, we've sold it and we'd like another one. And so it literally from that one box just started growing. Within, I think, 4 or 5 months, we got our first distributor from the Northern Beaches, and he ordered like a pallet, which was like, I thought I was rich at this stage. And it just slowly grew. I think that first year we might have turned over, I don't know, $60,000, $70,000.
So 13 years ago, you turned over $60,000 or something in your first year. What did you think would happen? Did you think you'd end up with $100 million business?
Oh, definitely not. No, if you'd said I was still selling coconut water, as my daughter says, selling coconut water out of the back of a truck, I would have said you were mad. Did I think that the category had legs? I did. Did I think it would be this big? Definitely not. So I think being a little bit naive at how hard this industry is, and also I think because I didn't come from an FMCG background, I questioned the way a lot of things were done. As an example, when we were doing our packaging, I didn't want to have palm trees and coconuts on the front of pack. And people are like, oh, you need to because it needs to be descriptive. And I was like, but everybody else has got that. They also said you shouldn't put black on the packaging because you don't put black on health food products. And it wasn't being arrogant or combative. It was just like, well, just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean it can't be done. So I think being naive definitely helped me, because I'm not sure I would have even started in this industry if I knew how hard it was, despite getting the business to this scale. But I think, it's just coming at it from a bit of a different angle to a lot of other people.
Well, it can't have been that hard if you've grown the business to where it is without any investors and funding it purely from cash flow. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is hard, Alan. It's, the Australia's a big country, but it's quite small. We have two very dominant supermarket chains that control 60 to 70% of the market. So it's very, very tough. You need really good people, you need a bit of luck, you need a lot of hard work, but it's also, I don't think it's any harder than it is right today. I wouldn't want to be starting an FMCG brand right now. The money that you need, the social media side of things. When I started, there wasn't really Facebook, Instagram. You didn't pay influencers. I remember one influencer that had a million followers, and we used to give her one box of coconut water a month as payment.
You wouldn't get away with that now.
Now you get people with their mum, dad, and auntie as followers wanting $5,000 for a post. So it's definitely a lot harder because you need a lot more money to be able to compete with bigger brands, and also to be able to get your products onto shelf.
Are you advertising much? I haven't seen much advertising.
That's probably the exciting thing. There hasn't been that much above the line advertising in the category. Usually in FMCG in Australia, you usually have a major multinational leading the charge, but in coconut water, that hasn't been the case. So the investment really up to probably a year ago has largely been below the line, through the major supermarkets, social media, that sort of thing. But in the last 6 months, we've started to do TV, radio, online, print, and one of our biggest competitors has also been doing that as well. So that's obviously something new to the category and is helping with the growth.
So it's got competitive now, has it? I mean, you must be starting to measure market share.
It's always been competitive. I think we did an analysis about 5 years ago and we counted 60 odd brands of coconut water in Australia. So it's always been very, very competitive, low barriers of entry. Anybody can really go up to Asia and do deals with factories and bring, coconut water in. So there's always new brands popping up, but we've continued to grow.
So what is your market share?
Our market share's sort of late 20s, early 30s, in a category that's probably $250 million just in coconut water. We do other products as well. We're a big importer of coconut oil. We've just got into snacks, yogurts. So we're branching out at the moment. But the category, has grown significantly, so much so that household penetration, which measures, people that buy the category in the last 6 months, is at 31.6%. That's up 1.6% in the last month. Whereas you look at the category 3 years ago, it was 14%. So the category has doubled in the last 3 years. And if you look at something like sparkling water, that has household penetration of about 26, 27%. So, coconut water has become very mainstream and a staple in people's pantries.
So more households have got coconut water than sparkling water.
That's correct, which is quite wild to think that, when I started the business 14 years ago, people didn't really know what coconut water was. It was really people that did yoga and were really into their health. So it's come a long way.
Is the difference that and what's happening is that more people or everyone's now concerned about their health? Is that what's going on?
I think there's a number of factors. One being definitely Australia's, predominantly an outdoor country. Weather's good. People, do care, especially after COVID, about their health. The availability of information. Coconut water is really easy to understand because it's a one ingredient product. I also think that our high immigration from Southeast Asia has been a significant factor in that. If you were born in Sri Lanka or the Philippines or Thailand, you might have had a coconut tree in your back garden or coconut trees, along the road on the way to school. So you would have grown up with coconuts. So I think the availability of information, people coming from countries where they understand the product, makes it easier to market to them because they already use it.
When did coconut water make the shift from yoga studios to supermarkets? I mean, and what do you think has changed to make it a more mainstream product rather than a niche one?
I think when it originally it was, coconut water's been in cans in Asian grocers forever and a day. Coconut water's nothing new. Like I was saying earlier, if you grew up in Asia, you grew up with coconuts around you. So coconut has been around forever and a day. It probably became mainstream 2014, 2015, when it did go into the major supermarkets because people started to see it. And definitely over the last 5-6 years where the supermarkets have put the 1 litres and put the coconut water more prominently in store, people have started to see it. Obviously, social media has been a big influence with that. People reading labels, people at gyms talking about, what you should put with, your protein or what you should be eating or drinking. And also the fact that people are drinking less milk, people are lactose intolerant. Coconut water is, dairy free.
Do the supermarkets, Coles and Woolworths, make it a bit harder than it needs to be? Or you probably can't
They don't
say.
make it easy. They don't make it easy, but nothing in business is easy. So, conversations are always robust. But we've got good relationships with Coles and Woolies. We're in a category that's up, 40% year on year. We can show that we attract, a different customer to our competitors. So, the category's on fire. We're launching a lot of new products which are resonating with consumers. So it does make the conversations a lot easier when you're going well than when you're not going well. But it's always challenging because, like I said before, when you've got 2 dominant players, they can make or break you. They have the volume. You can't get that volume anywhere else. So it's definitely a balancing act. We're sold, elsewhere in other independents, Aldi, Costco, fruit barns, corner stores, petrol and convenience, those sort of things. But to really get the volume, you need to be with the majors.
And what about online? Are you selling online?
Yeah, we sell online through Amazon. The challenge with our product is it's a heavy product, so it's expensive to ship. But ultimately, we have all parts of Australia covered in terms of where you can get our product. So online is not a massive part of the business.
And you're still getting containers from Thailand or something, were you?
No, we moved. So we moved to Vietnam probably about 8 years ago. We now have 3 factories in Vietnam that we use.
What do you mean? Oh, see, they're not your factories. You got 3 suppliers.
Correct, yes. So we negotiate with the factories directly with the farmers for our supply. So we lock in our supply forecast 12 months ahead of time. So we work very closely. We've got a team of people up in Vietnam that are in with the factories every day, work with the factories. So, we're fully integrated from that part. We're potentially looking at investing or buying into a couple of the factories to shore up supply. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey on the supply side as well.
Do you think about the ethics of the production line? You say you work with farmers. How do you make sure those farmers make a fair profit when the business is doing so well?
Yeah, great question. The great thing about coconuts is that up in Asia, they grow like weeds, and the coconuts are really, I guess, environmentally really sound in the fact that they grow like weeds. We buy the whole coconut, the coconut water comes out, and then the rest of the coconut is used. So the meat can be pressed for coconut oil or pressed for coconut meat. The shells are used, for utensils, bowls, and even the husks on the outside are used for charcoal or insulation. But I guess the farmers continue to get paid a fair wage. In fact, because it's so competitive at the moment with everything coconut, it's not just coconut water, but it's all the other products that people are wanting into personal care, etc. That the farmers are really earning a really good wage from it at the moment, a lot more than a lot of the other crops. So it's competitive out there. It's not where we would have the power over them. They more so have the power over us because of the demand.
Just on your Vietnamese suppliers, do they package it up and print the packaging and all that? Do you just get the product here and then start and ship it out?
Yeah, they do. They do everything. Obviously, we do all our design work here, and we work with the packaging manufacturers. But then everything's done by the factories once we've negotiated forecasts for coconut water, what we're going to order every month. It's pretty streamlined now. We've been doing it for 14 years. These factories are big producers of coconut water, so they're pretty good to deal with.
And you've expanded your range. I think you've got coconut milk and yogurt as well, and all that. I mean, is that are they kind of taking more share of your output, or is it still mainly water?
Look, it's still water because that's what we've been doing for the last sort of 13, 14 years. Coconut oil is probably 10% of our business. Like you said, we've just got into the yogurts. We've got milks. We've got some snacking products coming. We've got some other categories that we're launching late this year, early next year. So, my vision for the business is to be, when people think of coconut products, they think of raw sea. So you'll see some other pantry items coming into the market. We're never going to fully, move away from, beverages and coconut water because that's always going to be our main product. But I think we've got a role to play in, coconut more widely, as there's not that many brands doing, more than 4 or 5 coconut products across multiple categories.
And do the supermarkets see you as food and beverage or health food?
Food and beverage.
Right.
It would have started off as health food because people were thinking that coconut water was, just a healthy beverage. But, as an example, with our 1 litre, which is, the biggest part of our business, around 50% of the 1 litre is used as an ingredient for smoothies or protein shakes. So it's quite unique in the beverage category because, how many soft drinks, how many kombuchas can you have a day? Maybe 1, 2. But with coconut water, you can have it at the gym. It's a straight up. You can have it, like I said, as a smoothie, as a protein. Then you can have it as a flavored coconut water at lunch. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to expand the usages and the occasions. Something that the soft drink multinationals do really well is around, family time, sporting events, holidays. So there's still, I think, a long way to go with coconut water.
What's coconut water got in it apart from water? Has it got protein and sugar and stuff?
It's got potassium. It's got as much potassium as a banana. It's got a little bit of sugar, but it's natural sugar. There's nothing added to it. But apart from that, it's just hydrating. It's probably the next best thing after drinking water. So it's easy to market. It's easy for people to understand. the craze of these better for you drinks that have 15 ingredients, say they're sugar free, like better for you sodas, they still have erythritol or stevia, which are natural sugars, but they're still sugars. People are going back to, clean labels, a lot less ingredients. Um, so yeah, it's been really exciting to see.
Do you think that 31% of households is approaching peak coconut water? Are we
No,
getting to saturation yet?
I don't think so. I think the exciting thing for me is that a lot of people are piling into the category that are new users, but they're also using it a lot more. So whereas before it might have been they just, bought a straight up coconut water that they drank for hydration or they mixed it with a smoothie, they're now wanting other products like, coconut water with chocolate or a fruit based range that they can have, which is healthier than say an orange juice or a passion fruit juice that's loaded with sugar. You're still getting the hydration of the coconut water, but you're getting something that like with chocolate that's a little bit indulgent, or a juice that's a better for you. And then obviously the smaller formats, the cans, where you've got like a coconut water and pineapple that people are, drinking on the go or having it with lunch or dinner. So I think there's still a long way to go in terms of where the household penetration can get to. Of course, there'll be a ceiling at some stage. It won't continue, growing at this speed forever. But I still feel like that coconut water can be over 50%.
And what about the future of your business? Are you going to sell? Are you selling offshore, overseas now?
We're just about to launch a range nationally in Target, USA. So going into 1900 stores.
In Target,
Um, yeah, Target USA.
right?
We're talking to some of the other retailers there. We're in New Zealand, Singapore, Kuwait, South Africa, but the real focus has been on Australia because the growth has been so big. It's very easy to get excited about other markets and lose focus and pour a lot of money in, but resources and you know what we're trying to do here is really been our focus. We still feel like there's a lot of work to do here.
And what about in the US? What does the business look like there? Is it as competitive as here? Are there lots of brands and all that?
Yeah, it's just as competitive. It's 10 times the size population wise, 10 times the size in terms of the category. There's one major player, Vita Coco, that has sort of 60% market share.
All right. So what will you bring to the party?
I can't tell you exactly at the moment. Something a little bit different to what everybody else is doing, but
Oh, it's a secret.
it's a secret at the moment till we launch. But Vita Coco's done an amazing job. They were really the first big brand, consumer brand outside of the Asian canned products that you used to be able to get in America. They're now a $4.2 billion listed business in the US. Have done an amazing job of growing the category over there. But yes, it's just as competitive, if not more. The upside with the US is that they have a lot more retailers to sell to. It's not so concentrated on the selling side.
Also, each retailer's got a lot of stores. I mean, you go into Target and you've got 1,900.
That's right, which is basically the footprint of Coles and Woolworths put together here.
Yeah.
And Target would be classed as a second tier grocery channel. They're not a Walmart or a Whole Foods or someone like that. But they have significant presence over there.
And are you going to play up the fact that you're Australian?
To a degree, I think at the end of the day, products have to stand on their own 2 feet. They've got to stand for what they say on the can. They've got to be good tasting. They've got to be great value. We're definitely going to use it, but I don't think we're going to overplay it. So there's probably no role for Paul Hogan at this stage.
Apart from anything else, I suppose it's going to say somewhere on the pack, made in Vietnam.
Correct.
And what about the future of the company? What are your plans? Do you think you'll list it at some point?
I don't think I'd list it. I don't think that would be the avenue. Look, of course, with the category on fire, up 99% in supermarkets in the last 2 years, there's been a spotlight on the category. So we're always getting approaches from people to do stuff, people wanting to invest money. But, I'm still relatively young. I turned 50 this year, really enjoying it. Never say never, if the right offer came along.
You could probably do with some capital at some point.
Yeah, maybe we're ticking along okay. But look, there's been some opportunities, and I take them case by case. But for me, it's not. It wouldn't be just capital. It would be what doors could be opened, predominantly overseas, because that's where the extra growth would come from.
How many people do you employ?
20.
Right.
So we're quite light on.
Yeah, that's not bad for a $100 million business, 20 people.
Yeah, we're probably a bit light on, but that's definitely one of the challenges of a business that is growing really quickly. I was saying to somebody yesterday, it's a bit like being on a speeding train and laying the tracks in front of you as you speed down the tracks. So it's definitely a challenge. You can have the best business, the best product, but if you don't have good people in your business, it's very hard to grow and do well. So it's been a real focus for us on the last year, investing in good people, some new people, upskilling our current staff, putting in new systems. When you talk about, that first year, bring in maybe 2 or 3 containers, we'll probably do 2,500 to 3,000 containers from Vietnam next year. And so the logistics of that is a lot. So our logistics team is probably the biggest part of our business. So we've really invested heavily in the last year to be able to take the business to 150 and 200 million a lot quicker than what it took us to get to 100.
Is Dana one of the great people in your business?
She is. She's the GM, because I'm spending half the year away at the moment. So whether or not it's up at the factories, over in the US. So I've been lucky. Dana has been along for the ride from day dot. She joined the business 4 years ago. She's very good at dealing with people with her HR background, setting up systems and processes. So it's nice to have that safe pair of hands while I'm away, knowing that you've got somebody that you can trust and is really driving the business, because it doesn't stop just because I'm away. There's new things to look at every day, new fires to put out, and so it works really well because our styles and personalities are yin and yang.
She's probably got a new car now too.
She does have a new car. She does. And long gone are the days where we pack it full of coconut water. In fact, I often get reprimanded for not bringing home coconut water, because our daughters love drinking it and drinking smoothies in the morning. So quite often each week I'm walking down to Woolworths to buy our own product because I've forgotten to bring it home.
Very good. Well, it's been great talking to you, Scott. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for joining me on That's Business. You can find That's Business on the ABC Business Daily feed every Friday. And so you don't miss us, please follow ABC Business Daily on ABC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like it, tell your friends about us.